From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, a podcast for those who champion market growth and anchor the nation's economy, small businesses, and entrepreneurs.
Hey there, welcome to the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook Podcast. I'm Mike Maxon, that's Brandon Gray, and we're changing it up a little bit here. We're going to be, doing a little bit more frequent, shorter versions of the show for a little bit. We'll obviously mix in some other ones there, but stay tuned for more 15, 20-minute bursts more often, just because we're so popular, we're so great. People are like, we got to hear more. So,
yeah, right.
So we give the people what we wanted. We are of the people. Okay. So
more like our attention span is very similar to our clients. And after 15 minutes, that's about it. So.
Or a child. Yes. But no, in all seriousness, we're still reeling from Alabama losing down here. So, if there's a little downness in our voice, it's okay. My Cowboys had a bye week, so I didn't get that disaster as well. Looks like my fantasy football team's going to win. So okay weekend for me. But sucks about the Tide, that's for sure. But hey, today we're going to talk about rolling 12, rolling 3, P&L views and their benefits and what they bring to the table, something from an analysis standpoint you all can look at. So Brandon, take us away, man.
Yeah, sure. So the first book that Greg Crabtree authored, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits, talks a little bit about this. And it's one in which, especially when we start working with a new client, or someone who's not familiar as much with the Simple Numbers process, this is one of the small things that you can do that will really help you get a better hold of what's truly taking place in your company. So we'll kind of start off talking about a couple of those views. And so the monthly P&L. I like to say if you look at 1 month of time, you're either on top of the mountain or you're so far down you've got to look up to see bottom. And neither one of those are a good place to make a decision from. And so, monthly data is just too inconsistent. You've got a month to where you might have a large operating expense. You've got a month that might have a lot of seasonality in it. And so it's a down month or it's a really high month. Bookkeeping isn't perfect in many cases. You might have a month that has double rent expense in it. It just got put into the wrong month. And so if you just look at 1 month of data, it's not enough time to really get a feel for what your business is doing. And I'm not saying don't look at a month. Okay. It's part of what you need to review.
Yeah, Brandon, real quick. I do want to say this, Brandon. I do just like it using as, hey, did we say what was going to happen? Was there something out of the ordinary that we didn't catch? For example, we said we were going to hit, I'm just throwing this out there, $500,000 a month of revenue. Like, did you? No, why not? Hey, we said we were going to spend $300,000 this month on costs. We didn't. Why? Or that flash in the pan thing that should have out of nowhere. So it's more like a check against yourself of, is what's happening? Sorry, Brandon, I just want to say that. That's how I talk about it. I stay away from it.
It's a great point. And so another good reason to look at it is you want to stay on top of what's going on inside your business in terms of just making sure that everyone who's involved in the financials knows someone's looking. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is accuracy of information. Hey, this moved around. What's going on here? Another is that, if you go a couple months without looking at your P&L and someone's stealing from you, you're probably not going to pick it up too quick. And so you just want to keep a pulse, you might say, as to what's taking place there. So yeah, look at it, but I'm not making a strategic decision based upon 1 month at a time. Okay. The second view that we really like to look at, is the rolling through. So let me explain what we mean by rolling through. So if you're looking at data for a 3-month time period, so it could be June, July, August, could be July, August, September, could be September, October, November. You're looking at 3 months of time. And in each column of your P&L, you have those 3-month segments. So it's going to give you a little better idea because, you could have some volatility in the case of 1 month, but you put 3 together, it starts to take a little bit of that out. It's not perfect. Once again, if you've got seasonality, if you're running a lawn care company and you look at April, May, June, it's probably going to look phenomenal versus December, January, February. So it's not going to be perfect in that regard, but it is going to extend that period just a little bit so that hopefully you can see the emergence of trend. We like to say 1 month could be an anomaly, 2 months you're onto something, 3 months is a trend. So that rolling 3 is going to give you an idea if you made some changes in your business in particular. Are those changes starting to show up in the data? Are we making progress with those changes? If you recently changed pricing, for example, you got 2 months that has taken place, 1 month looking historically that doesn't have that price increase, we should start to see margin increase a little bit there. Just looking at that leading indicator of a rolling 3. So
I always like when the clients, you get someone and they're like, man, we had a great month. It was so awesome. And remember, people have a short memory sometimes. And then you start looking at rolling 3 trend and it's like, well, we're running like consistent rolling 3 losses here when you start stacking them up month by month. And it's like, listen, you're having a good month. And this goes back to what we talked about in the monthly side, but then another okay month and then a really bad one. And we're not getting any really consistent trend. And I like when someone says, hey, how do you feel like we're doing? I mean, I always look at rolling 3 trending data to see, hey, are we consistently getting profit on a rolling by quarter basis? Because it means we're starting to stack more than 1 month on top of each other to show some good performance trend. Because again, you even might get 2 good months in a row, and the next thing you know, the bottom falls out. It's like, oh my gosh, we made 300,000 in 2 months, lost 600,000 in 1 month, and then you get this rolling 3 picture that is just not showing consistent momentum stacking up. So that's a great view to look at, is consistent rolling 3 profit and performance in your business.
It helps a little bit as you look at strategic decisions. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're running things really tight with labor, and which a lot of folks are right now. And if you're not, you're either in a really great environment, which is the exception, or you're not paying close enough attention. And so let's say that you're running it pretty tight with labor, and you're starting to tell the team they're fatigued. The team's getting tired. Maybe I'm starting to hit some labor efficiency ceilings. And so you can look at that R3 data and say, okay, I've got 3 months now of improvement with the labor efficiency, and my outlook looks positive. I'm probably going to highly consider, okay, do I make a little bit of an addition to the team? Do I find a way to, even if it's just part-time or using some contract labor or what have you, do I find a way to supplement that labor spend a little bit to ease up somewhat? So I kind of can, like I said, get a better gauge. And as quick as things are moving right now, as volatile as the economy is, that R3 is a pretty good idea of where things are going. So it can help a little bit with strategic decisions. So that's the monthly. Like I said, volatile. I'm going to be real careful about a strategic decision. Like Mike mentioned, I can use it to benchmark in terms of, this is what I expected. Is this what happened? And kind of compare the two. The rolling 3 is going to give us a little bit better idea. Once again, it's got seasonality in it, so it's not perfect, but it does give us a better idea of where things are trending to make some better decisions a little bit quicker. So those are 2 views. We're going to talk about another one here in just a second, but before we do, Mike, I think you've got some exciting news kind of related to simple numbers in a couple of our planning sessions.
Yeah, so one thing we don't do is really talk about ourselves and what we do. I think I mentioned that on a prior podcast before about going, hey, I've had people call us like, do you guys offer like consulting services and talk about this stuff? It's like, yeah, we actually do. My afternoon is full of like 6 calls today with clients. So we obviously do that. And so we wanted to extend a special offer out to our podcast listeners. You mentioned that you heard it on the podcast. Through the end of November, we'll give you 20% off one of our initial kickoff sessions. You can go to simplenumberscri.com and check out our pricing. But we're going to offer 20% off on that. So please let us know that you listened to the podcast and heard that. If you want to work with us on an initial kickoff session, great getting yourself ready for 2025. We'll obviously build out your financial model, obviously put your data in our format and talk the simple numbers concepts. But most importantly, forecast and target for 2025, run scenarios, and really get you seeing what that planned outcome could look for next year, where you need to be when it comes to revenue, margins, labor, and then your overall cost structure. So again, 20% off now through the end of November. I just mentioned that you heard it here, and we will get that rolling for you.
Good deal. Yeah, if you're going to put up with the pain of listening to us ramble, might as well get something in return, right?
That's true.
So, and hopefully you get a nugget or two along the way as we're going through this. But, yeah, we're going to do that till the end of November. So, like Mike mentioned, be sure to mention it, because if not, then we're not going to know to give you the discount. So, nonetheless, the last view that we look at on the P&L is the rolling 12, and we call the rolling 12 the gold standard. So let me go through what we mean by rolling 12 and how we can use it. So rolling 3, like we said, we'll look at the past 3 months of time, and each column on your P&L is going to show that. The rolling 12 is just like that, but it looks at the past 12 months of time. So the beauty behind it is it takes out the seasonality. If you're looking at rolling 12 data, and let's say we're looking at November data, and you go, well, we're in, back to that lawn care example, we're in lawn care. November's a bad month. Well, guess what? On the R12, we got all 12 months in there. So it has the highs, the lows. If we're looking at data on that rolling 12, let's just say for October, that's going to have data from November 1st of the prior year all the way to October 31st. And each column is going to show those 12 months of time as you go through it. And so it really gives you the true kind of rhythm of the business, you might say, the direction of the business, where it's headed. You start to see normalization in those once-a-year costs. You start to see the months that maybe we had the 2 months of rent in it. Those are leveled back out now. You really get a clean idea for where the business is at. And so it's really good in that regard. If you're making progress, and the goal becomes each R12 period, I want to see progress. I want to see improvement in revenue. I want to see improvement in gross margin, and most importantly, I want to see improvement in profitability over that 12. And so to do it, you just got to beat the same month from last year. If every month's better than that same month last year, you're going to be moving in the right direction. So there's some real value in looking at that data. Many times we find our clients start to look at year to date, and year to date just doesn't give you a clean view, because you could be looking at really, really strong performance, but if you get to like Q4, and Q4 is always rough, then it's going to be a little misleading, and vice versa from that standpoint. So the R12, like we said, is somewhat of that gold standard. It tells us where we're going, but it's not.
And one thing that's really great about it, I think, is that it really it helps you see where the targets potentially need to be, and you start to see, hey, what was my labor efficiency target, Mike? And it's like, well, I can show you several rolling 12 periods where it's $3 of gross margin per labor dollar. And we have that in our rolling 12 history to get there. If you ever look at a monthly or rolling 3, you see a little bit more inconsistency there, the ups and the downs of it. Rolling 3 a little bit better than monthly, like Brandon mentioned, but rolling 12 will show consistency. You rarely see on a rolling 12, again, not all the time, someone go for $2 of labor efficiency up to $4 the next month. It's not going to work out that way. That smoothing of all those targets allows you to see, oh, okay, here's where I probably need to be in terms of, my company best.
Yeah. And so it's a great data point, but it's not perfect, because if you made changes in your business, let's say over the last 3 or 4 months, you look at the rolling 12, it's going to have 8 months of data under the old way, maybe before the price increase or the change in team or whatever. It's going to have 4 months under the new way. So it's going to be very slow to react. That's why we go back to the rolling 3, because it's going to be more of a leading indicator. And so you kind of put all 3 of those views together. It's like looking at the gauges on your car. You drive into the office, you're probably not going to only look at a fuel gauge because you're going to speed to it. You're probably not going to only look at a tachometer because you'll run out of fuel. But if you look at all of the gauges on your dashboard of your vehicle, that gives you an idea. Is everything running as it should be? It's not running hot. I don't have an issue running out of fuel. I'm not speeding. All of those kind of things come into play. And so you use that same kind of concept when looking at the data inside your business. I want to see monthly to get the quickest view. Am I on track or not? I want to look at the R3 to see does that have any consistency with it? And I want to look at R12 to take out all the seasonality and the anomalies and expenses, and in some cases revenue, to see, are we making now progress? And as Mike said, am I beating those targets that I put in place? So it's a really good view when you look at the R12, the R3, and the monthly, put them all together. And we do just that on our calls. So we'll look with our clients, hey, great job for the month, but it wasn't the same month we had last year, so we see the R12 declining.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as good as maybe what that 1 month would perhaps suggest. So, and put all those together, we're happy to help you with that. That's something we do with all of our clients. We're going to look at all three of those views as we work with them. So, Mike, any other thoughts here before we close it out?
Yeah, just one is when you're looking at that data, even on my client calls, I'm always going to compare year over year, right? Hey, how did last September look to this September? And how did last rolling quarter, how did Q3 look to last year, Q3? But remember, sometimes you see improvements maybe in that rolling 12, rolling 3, or monthly compared to last year. But that's when you go over to that trending view. Hey, how am I moving now across time? And utilizing each one of them in context with that, because you might have I bet people be like, man, I'm up 20% year over year. I'm at 8% profit. Wow, man, that's great. We're better than last year. Well, I pull over on the rolling 3 and we got 4 consecutive rolling 3 periods of losses and declining sales. Hasn't hit that rolling trend yet, old rolling 12 yet, but it's an indicator of going, hey, so while you can look at year over year data on the same thing, keep in mind, hey, how have we done year over year in all 3 of those areas? Now let's look how we're trending in all 3 of those areas. And so when I conduct my client calls with them, that's how the format I follow, where it's like, hey, we're looking at year over year. What we do better than last year? Would we do worse? But now how are we moving that along? And those 3 combined will really tell you and give you an idea of where it is. And then from there, then you go look into cash flow and all that other stuff.
Great point. So I had 2 calls last week, and on each of those calls, they hit record rolling 12 levels. I mean, it was like, you look at the dashboard and that sucker's green, and then we started talking forecasting, and they're about to lose momentum on both of them. And so we'll talk more, I'm sure, about that during some future podcasts in terms of forecasting techniques and things you can do there. But
great lead in for our next episode, Brandon.
There you go. You always got to throw it out there. So, but when we put the forecast in and looked at the rolling 12, we could see we've got a problem. There's an issue. We can celebrate all the wins all day, which is great if you want to, but we know ahead there are problems. So we need to start making changes now in order to minimize or prevent those issues. So nonetheless, if you got questions on any of this, you know where to find us. You can head out to the website. It's simplenumberscri.com. Hit us up, send us an email, give us a call. Like we mentioned earlier, we got the special offer for those listening to the podcast. And if you just want to learn more, or you need to run a scenario by us, just give us a shower.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Brandon. Well, you all have a good one, and stay tuned for the next one. Talk to you soon.
See y'all.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business, or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. The views expressed on Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast, are those of the presenter and moderator and do not necessarily reflect the views of CRI Simple Numbers or the CRI family of companies. This podcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice received directly. Consult with your CRI Simple Numbers advisor or another trusted professional if you have questions about your specific situation.